Yeah, come and have a look now at an Austin 7, a car that, well, it's iconic, I think that's the only word to use for it really. I know that word is bandied about too much. But in this case, in the case of an Austin 7, I think you really can say iconic. It was the car for the masses, a bit like VW Beetles were in Germany, you know, built for the everyday man, and I think the Austins were much the same. They were sort of built down to a price rather than up to a quality, I think, but at the same time, they done the job. They got the average family in this country on the road and around and travelling 100 miles in a day or whatever it might be, which is basically unheard of until little Austin 7s and that came on the scene for the average man in the street we're talking about. And this one here I'm just going to show you now is a little Ruby. So it's the last of the line of the Austin 7s. Ran up until about 1939, I think, just literally just pre-war. And they're a great little car, as long as you don't want to get anywhere fast. But they were the cheapest form of family transport for mum and dad and 2 or 3 kids in the back. So consequently, they were so popular and still are today, because the little box 7, the earlier model, and the Ruby to a great extent, it seems to be most people's idea of a pre-war car. It's just got that look about it, and they run up, as I say, until 1939, so they are truly pre-war cars. I don't believe there's any produced afterwards. I might be wrong, but I don't think there was. And I suppose as they improved slightly with 1 or 2 refinements, of which I can't think of any, then they became more and more popular. But the most important thing, they were affordable. You know, 30 quid, bought you a good second-hand one. I don't know what they were new, 100 quid or something on that sort of line, 150 quid maybe. It was a lot of money, obviously in 1938, you know, pre-war, it was a lot of money. It took a lot of saving up for the average man. But he could buy quite a nice one, second-hand one for 35 quid, which again took some earning and took some saving. You know, when you think my dad, pre-war, was probably on like £4.10, which is £4.50 a week. And obviously the family had to live on that. So if he managed to put £1 away a week, it took him 35 weeks to save up for one of them, and then he had to tax it and all the rest of it and probably do some work on it. So they took some buying, but here it is here, come and have a look. There she is, an unusual colour, tundra green we call it, tundra green. But not a bad little example, ready for some cosmetics. Stood for quite a while, I'll show you, you can quite easily see. It hasn't been used for a while. I mean, it's got that not used for a while look about it, hasn't it, there. But strong little power plant really for what they are. Not fast, but you know, reliable, I would think. That's probably the best way to put it. The later one like this got 3-bearing crank, which is an awful lot better than the early 2-bearing crank, which used to break quite easily. So they're quite a robust little unit, delivering virtually no brake horsepower, but it got you about. I wouldn't say it got you up big hills, you know, Sutton Bank and things like that, it would have struggled, but it probably got up there with one person in it. Inside, really original old thing, this one in particular, you can see in there, a really, really honest, original old car. I would think the headlining had been replaced at some stage, but a long time ago. This here is the original upholstery. This has been replaced, as you can see. Got reasonably newish carpets in there, but wants a real good recommissioning and getting at, as we call it. It just wants getting at, you know, little bits and pieces. See some paint falling off the offside rear mudguard and so on. But as it is at the moment, I thought, when I first saw it, I thought with a nice big service and recommission, new battery and stuff like that, you could really, really get it on the road for next to nothing. Really, really cheap. And the cosmetics, whilst they're important, because we all want to drive nice, smart, immaculate cars, but the cosmetics really could wait for 6 months or a year until you got a bit of money and have them done professionally rather than mess them about and make a bit of a pig's ear of it yourself. So, and in the meantime, massive enjoyment. And stuff like this that looks really, really unmolested and quite original actually causes lots of interest at shows, because we're all used to absolutely glorious mint Austin 7s and the such like driving onto the show field. When one drives in like this, you know, with a bit of flaking paint and warts and all, but running well, it's quite a novelty, and I think this would go down really well. I'm not over sure about the colour, but you know, you could argue it's a period sort of pre-war-ish colour, so that wants leaving as it is. Paintwork required around this. Well, you can see it's got some damage on here, bits and pieces. These here, I would have to do something about these really. I don't like indicators on any pre-war car really, but I do realise they're a safety feature these days. But you can buy smaller ones and put them on there a lot more discreet than that. Again, this wing been knocked about and dinged and donged. There's your, you know, even this, there's your paint fell off your rear mudguard, or rear wing as we call it. We call it a mudguard really, but I mean, you can touch it up and make it look tidy for the time being. So if you imagine that car, like I say, serviced, recommissioned, really cleaned up inside and out, made to look nice, it's quite acceptable for a period while you're saving up to get the rest of it done. Little rack on the back, as you can see, which is where your big picnic basket or suitcases, I mean, you'd have put 2 suitcases on that, and a family of 4 would have gone off, I don't know, a couple of 100 miles to Seaside or whatever it might be. And this is what I mean about it bringing transport to the masses. It was affordable, reliable, and consequently very enjoyable. Spare wheel in there, as you can see. Port pie backlights, original. But you see these again, you know, I just couldn't quite live with them. I'd have to tuck smaller ones underneath here. But I do understand the importance of them. Got a sliding roof. Now a sliding sunroof and pump up seats, they have a bladder in some of the base of the driver and passenger seat, and they give you an indication whether it's a deluxe or not. So with a sunroof, sliding head like that, I think it gives you a fair indication it would be a deluxe model, but I don't know the other refinements. Guard dogs are starting. So there you are, you know, just perfect starter classic. Wait for the dog. Hey, pack up, will you? Pack up. Iris, pack up. Done it, I think. Yeah, perfect starter classic. Having said that, the Ruby was regarded as the poor relation of the Austin 7 range until very, very recently. By recently, I mean probably the last 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden, I think people have realised that they are an old Austin 7, rather than pull up pretty strong money for a box 7, 1934, something on that sort of line, with these sort of dwindling around the 3,000 quid mark and 3,500 quid for a nice one 3 or 4 years ago. People then realised that, hang on, you know, it is an Austin 7. It might not be quite as old looking as a box, which it's not, you know, painted grille and rad surround and stuff like that. But it is still an Austin 7, and it's got all the charm of a pre-war car. So consequently, prices have increased quite nicely, and I'm actually quite pleased about it. Look at the chain to release the door handle. Silly little things like wants oiling. Look, you know, just lack of use and a bit of neglect over a few years. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we okay. Yeah, lack of use and a bit of neglect over the last few years, which has now got to be rectified. So the vehicle's got to be improved upon, but not an awful lot of money to be spent. Do not spend an awful lot of money on this car. No way. Don't price yourself out of a cheap, usable, sensibly priced little Austin 7, which is exactly what it is.